found in one case in Georgia, the real linchpin to being able to have a successful prosecution was to have an agent go undercover. And an agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation put herself in that situation.
Dr. Abbas Halim Demetrius was his name, and he was practicing in Cumming, Georgia. He was an anesthesiologist, and the way the case came about on him was a young woman went to see him, and she had pelvic inflammatory disease. And she had been to him many times before, and each time she would go, he would give her an IV to help with the inflammation. And so she went back to him, and he took her to the back. Her husband and the child waited in the waiting room, and she said that he gave her the IV and that she passed out, and that at one point she woke up, and when she woke up that he was actually on top of her having sex with her. She was the first victim that came forward, and then the assistant district attorney contacted the GBI and asked if there was any way that we could send someone undercover. I went over there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I asked about having an appointment with him for hypnosis. And he came out front, and he literally looked me up and down. He scanned me up and down with his eyes, and then told me to come back that night at 9 o'clock. I had never in my life had a doctor tell me to come in at 9 o'clock at night. That evening, when we went back, of course there were other agents with me, and I was wired too. And when I went back, there were no cars in the parking lot whatsoever. There was only one light on in the building, and when I opened up the door and went in, he was waiting on me at the front desk. Took me back to the back room, where an examining room, and one of the first things that I had noticed was that there were locks on the doors of each of the examining rooms. Well, when I went into the exam room, he had one of those little roll-around trays, and there were 2 syringes on it. And we later found out, when that was sent to the lab, that one was a drug that would have knocked me out, another was a drug that would have brought me back, because he was an anesthesiologist. So I commented on the syringes to make them know that there were drugs there, and he said, well, we may not need those. He had me get up on the table, and he started with his hypnosis thing. And as soon as he thought I was hypnotized, the first words out of his mouth, he wanted to know how old was I the first time I had sex, and what was the person's name that I had sex with. And so when I answered his questions, he said, when you wake up and you look at me, you're going to think that I'm the first person you ever had sex, and you're going to want me. You're going to want to be with me. And he would put his hand on my leg and literally start walking with his hand up my leg beside the exam table. And he kissed me like 9 times while we were in there. And each time he did this, I would say, you kissed me, because I wanted the guys outside to understand what was going on too. And I sat up, and I kept pretending that I was going in and out of hypnosis, and that he couldn't keep me hypnotized, and he was getting frustrated with that. He didn't like that. Then he put his hand on my leg, and he ran his hand all the way up under my skirt, and he ran it between my legs, and as soon as he did that, I had him for sexual battery, and I knew that. And so there was no doubt in my mind that he was doing the things that we had been told that he was doing. And when they brought him in, he did not realize, you know, why he was being arrested at that point. He didn't realize it had to do with me. I was in the other room, and when I walked in, the look on his face, I mean, it was just, he had dark skin, and he literally turned white when he realized, you know, what was going on. After he was arrested, there was a newspaper article as well as some things done on TV about it, and we just asked any woman who'd ever had a problem with him, you know, if they had anything they wanted to tell us, to please come forward. And we had 80 women that came forward. They were anywhere from 16 years old up until their 60s. In the end, after the trial was over, he got 50 years. I knew I could cut it off. I knew the guys were out there, but I also knew that if I didn't let him do this, that he would never get arrested, because people who have been victimized like this feel so badly when it happens. I mean, they're going in there for help. They're going in there because they're sick. They're going in there because they've got a problem, and they're going to somebody that they trust.